I did 20 years in the department, 3 different prisons. Salinas Valley State Prison for a couple of years, then about 15 at DVI till they closed it, and then I finished out my career at Old Folsom for about 3.5, 4 years.
Okay. Uh, how I want to start this interview is I want to like get to know you a little bit before you went into corrections, because as we all know, I think we're a little bit different type of person before corrections as opposed to post corrections. I think it does changes a little bit. So I want to know, like, where did you grow up and what exactly did you do before corrections? What was your career? How'd you make money?
All right. So, grew up most of my life in Sacramento or in the Sacramento area. Dad was in the Air Force stationed at Mather, so I lived just outside the base there. Um, found found myself in some trouble as a kid, like we all do probably. But I found out early on that I liked money and I liked to work. And so, I've always had some kind of work, be it a paper route, mowing people's lawns. I worked for Taco Bell at 16 and kept that job forever, it seemed like. Um, and wound up in the pest control field shortly after high school, 19 years old. Tried college, didn't work, wasn't for me, and I couldn't afford it. And I realized I'll never pay this back. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided I'm going to just find a job. And I was pretty successful. I did that for 13 years. And, but it got to a point where I really had topped it out. Like I'd capped out. I wasn't going to make more money. I was working 6 days a week, trying to make as much as I could, delivering pizzas on the side.
How much were you making as a topped out pest control guy? If you don't mind me asking.
The highest that I made in a year was about $50,000, which was really, really good for the area. But typically it was 30, 40, somewhere in there. I just
Well, yeah,
happened.
and that long ago.
Yeah, and that was a long.
Yeah.
It was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
That would give you next to nothing today. But and I had a friend that worked for county corrections, and he looked at me and he goes, "You'd be really good at this. You should give it a try." I was like, well, I'll try something. So I put in an application, went through the process, jumped through all the hoops, lifted all the things, blah blah blah. They did an interview. I don't know that the interview went well because I had no history in law enforcement whatsoever. But they hired me. I was like, oh, wow, cool. And I was there for 4 months, I think. And first couple of months, they just put me in the jail and sent me around with training officers, which was a good program. And I thought things were going well. They sent me off to San Mateo County for their academy. And while at the academy, I had one training officer that wrote an eval on me that I didn't like the guy. He didn't like me. It is what it is. I came back from the academy and they let me go. And I was like, well, wow. And I looked at the captain who was doing it. I go, I don't understand. You just spent thousands and thousands of dollars to send me off to this training. Don't you want to see if that money was worth it? And it's like, no, we're not worried about that. And I think that was the first time I saw where a government agency will just waste money to waste money. And so they let me go. But what it did is that I loved it. I love the work. I love doing it.
How long were you doing it before they let you go?
Just 4 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I did it for 4 months, but working in the environment, working around the inmates, working around, like, there were some really good cops there. It was a great environment that I loved. And so that's where I got the passion, like, well, this is what I want to do. And that was in 2001. And it took me a couple of years to overcome whatever they were saying on background investigations to find someone to rehire me. But CDCR picked me up in 2005. And that's when I started the academy there and started this journey that I've just completed.
Like, do you think it was one of those it's who you know type of things, like to where maybe the training officer was like in cahoots with the captain, says, no, get this guy out of here because you're not getting along? Something like that?
I can't say for sure what his relationship was with the uppers, but I know he didn't like me and I didn't like him. In fact, the evaluation that I got from him was mostly fabricated, like, writing things in there about my work performance that weren't accurate. And again, in that time, one bad evaluation, but they let me go. So, politics are politics. And if you know me, I don't really play those games at work.
Okay. Do you think that guy was probably a piece of shit?
I do. I absolutely do. And he was not nice by any means.
Yeah, let's go ahead and set the
Yeah.
tone. Yeah, hey, it's been 20 years. He probably had time, and he's probably not working anymore. So
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't work with him after that anyway.
sounds like a piece of shit to me, if you ask me.
You're not wrong. So, but what I took out of that was like I found my path. Like that's what I want to do. And so I went back to college, just to community college, and started taking administration of justice classes and applying and trying to do things to improve myself
Mhm.
until I got back into the industry. Um, that's it in a nutshell, really.
Wow. I had zero experience in any kind of law enforcement when I came to corrections. Zero. And you know how much college I had?
Probably zero.
Zero. You want to know how much high school I had? And I'm okay, everybody. I'm okay admitting this because I did pretty well for myself. Damn near next to zero. I dropped out of the ninth grade. I'm a ninth grade dropout, but it's not because I was a piece of shit. I wasn't out running the streets. I wasn't getting in trouble. It's just that, when you're in a certain monetary demographic, sometimes school's just not for you. So,
Right.
and that's what it was for me, is because just showing up to school and like pretty much toes hanging out your shoes, and we were just weren't very fortunate. We weren't born with a silver spoon in our hands or in our mouth. So is that the phrase? Silver spoon in your mouth or
In your
hand?
in your mouth, but it probably wasn't anywhere in the house. Neither was there one in mine.
Yeah. So I ended up. Long story short, I ended up in warehousing. And at the time, I ended up shortly after I got into warehousing. I ended up getting married, and have a couple kids, and I was like, that wasn't enough. A buddy of mine, Todd Good, was already in corrections, and he got his wife into doing it. And he's like, "Why don't you come to corrections?" And I'm like, "Are you fucking crazy? I don't want to work in no prison around inmates." I mean, that's like I was never really around the rough crowd. So he's like, "It's not what you think." He goes, "It's not like what you see on TV." He goes, and at the time he was at DVI. He's like, "The inmates know the program. For the most part, they do it. You're just there to watch them do it." He says it's kind of like an airline pilot. It's like smooth sailing most of the time, but whenever there's a fight or there's a little riot, he goes, "There's your turbulence." He goes, "You never have to deal with it alone, and then you guys respond to it after an hour, a couple hours. It's back to smooth sailing again."
3 or 4 hours, depending on the paperwork.
Depending on the situation, yeah. And for the most part, that's what it was.
I always tell
You know,
people when they ask me about it, and I go, everything that you see on TVs or in the movies about a prison, all those things do happen, but they don't happen every day. They don't happen every week. Yes, I've seen murders, suicides, riots, stabbings, blah blah. In 20 years, I've seen all of that at least some point of the time. But we've gone weeks and weeks with no incident before, like with nothing. It's not as bad as obviously you still have to be able to deal with it, but it's not like it's chaos all the time.
yeah. No, what do they say? It pays pretty well because we get paid for what we may have to
What we
do
might have to
rather
do,
than what we
what we
do
do.
every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. Um, I was contemplating quitting on my second week working at DVI.
Really.
Did you have any thoughts of quitting or any thoughts of like this isn't for me or anything like that?
No, my once I got into like I said, after the stint in county, I realized it's what I wanted. Now, when I first started that job, I was just, like a deer in the headlights. I didn't know what to do, because I had no training, no experience, nothing. But by the time I got to Salinas Valley, I knew that's what I wanted. And honestly, the first few months there was pretty chill because they were on lockdown for the whole time
Mhm.
for several months because there was 2 officers that got stabbed while I was at the academy, so they slammed the entire prison.
Mm.
So it was a lot of self-eating, but there was minimal movement. If it wasn't something critical, they didn't come out. So it was pretty chill at first. Once I opened up the yards, it got cooking. But I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I was mentally prepared to do it. When I saw people quit at the academy, like the second day of the academy, and I was like, I just quit my job for this. I'm not giving this up.
Okay, so you didn't start at DVI.
I started at Salinas Valley.
Okay. I'm just learning that about you. So the first week there, one of the first days, they put me in C wing. North and South mainliners were in C wing, and apparently they've been already on lockdown for a long time for whatever happened before I got there. And us new guys, no, okay, let me back up. So all three tiers, and I believe it was all races in there, North, South, white, everybody was on
East
lockdown.
and West.
So apparently they had complaints they weren't getting their supplies on time. I don't know if it was they wasn't getting the TP or the daily necessities. I don't know what it was, but they were protesting, and all three tiers were flooding at the same time. So they would block their doors with their blankets and whatnot,
Flush the toilets.
fill up the their cells, and they would release it. Somebody would give the order, and they release it at the same time. Literally, the whole third tier, both sides, waterfall off of it. Second tier, waterfall off of it. First tier, they were flooding too. So it was like a swimming pool of sewage water, of toilet water on the first tier, and there was so much of it, it was going out into the main corridor, west corridor. So they had us new guys. Hey, everybody, grab a squeegee. Opened up the pipe chases, and we just squeegeed all that stuff
inside of the pipe
into the pipe chases. And while we're doing that, the inmates were kicking their doors, talking shit to us, yelling at us, clean my shit, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing? You know, I'm like, I don't know if this is for me, you know? and then I think it was the next week. I think the whites were on lockdown, and I think that there was a white and black thing going on, and the whites were on lockdown, and they weren't happy about something, and they were actually breaking windows down, yelling at us. They were like trying to spear us with their spears they made out of the newspaper. So I was like, man, I don't know if I signed up for this, you know. So I was going to quit, but at the time, I had some babies at home. I was just bought a house. And I'm like, you know what? I got to do this until I can't do it no more. So
bills got to be paid, man.
Here I am, 24 years later, retired. So how long were you a correctional officer at DVI before you decided to promote? And let me ask you, why did you want to promote?
Well, my workaholic nature, you know, if I'm not going forward, I'm going backwards. As I was always thought of it. I started that process before I got to DVI. I took the exam the day I transferred, actually, from Salinas Valley to DVI was the exam date. So I took the exam that day and started doing interviews and stuff, and thought it was the right step to take. Now, I kind of changed my mind on that thought process later. But I did that. I had 5 years total as a officer before I promoted to sergeant, because I did want to wait a little bit, because I felt like I'm not sure how to be an officer yet. Why? How the hell am I going to be their boss? And so I waited till I felt like I knew enough to actually be a sergeant before I promoted.
Okay, so how long were you a correctional officer?
But I was an officer for 5 years.
Okay, I think that's probably a good amount of time before you promote. They used to tell us when I first started, the OGs would say, if you're going to promote to sergeant, do it earlier in your career.
I mean, and there is certainly some benefits to that because of the seniority things and stuff like that. I was more concerned with trying to do it the right way, and so I waited a little bit.
Did you ever have any thoughts of maybe I would like being a correctional officer better? Did you ever think about demoting back down, or once you become a sergeant, is it like, okay, this is my life now, I'm going to stay a sergeant? Because I have heard of people in the past, they have demoted back down, but I think that's because they got in trouble or whatever.
Well, I had regrets almost immediately, and what I'm going to tell you, if you remember 2010, who our warden was at the time, and the culture was very much not friendly to staff. Line staff was the enemy. If you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the warden at that time, that was the female, right?
Yes, he fired like 70 cops in a year or something stupid.
Okay.
But but that's what I promoted under. And shortly after promoting, I had an administrator approach me and say, "You need to understand that you're not on the side of those officers now. Your job is to go after them." And I said, "No, that is not my job description. That's not what I'm going to do." But that culture there made me not want to be part of that management team at all. But I'm a fighter, and I made it my purpose to fight them on behalf of the officers underneath me whenever possible.
Right. I know exactly what you're saying, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that down on like the correctional officer level. I never thought I was like correctional officer type, but I'm like, well, this is my job now. I'm gonna go ahead and get in where I fit in and maneuver without getting in trouble or pissing anybody off. So is that pretty much the attitude?
Almost, except for I wasn't as concerned with pissing people off.
Yeah. Well, I can tell. I can see why you would have more interaction with administrators, like even the warden, than like say I did as a correctional officer, because I'm like, as a correctional officer, you can duck and weave and just like go do your job and like just stay tucked away. As long as you do your job, nobody messes with you, right? So a little bit different for someone who's at least a sergeant.
Yeah, well, and I had to sit in on meetings and things and listen to stuff that I didn't necessarily agree with, and oftentimes would find ways to tone down the policy that I'm supposed to implement to you to do, that you and I both knew was never going to work. So I always said I was a bullshit filter as a sergeant, because I would have to take the stuff from the administrators and somehow clean it up enough to where I could present it to you as an officer and say, this is what they want us to do. And then listen to your feedback. And usually it was very unhappy feedback for the policies because they were stupid. And try and pick out the parts where I say, can go back to my bosses and say, this isn't going to work. And here's the reasons. These things here will not work in this environment. It won't make it safe. So I felt like that was my role as a sergeant, was to try and hear the staff out with the policies and bring it back up and say, hey, this is what needs to change. This is how, if we have to implement this, we got to do it like this. If we don't have to implement it, that's better.
Right, right, right. So you would get the feedback from the officers running the tier, basically, right? You're talking about how they want the tiers ran.
Yes.
Because so I never really had to deal with that because, like I said, how you maneuver as a correctional officer. My first 10 years, I was sick leave relief or holiday relief or vacation relief. So when I work a building, it was usually with the regulars who already had their hardball waves of running a unit.
And you just got
So
to go
so
along for the
I'm just like,
ride.
hey, how we doing this today?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, and just go do it. So the regulars are the ones who would actually deal with you.
Right.
So like I said, it was easy for me. I never got in trouble. You know, uh, never really pissed anybody off. I don't think. So as a sergeant, did you ever get in trouble? And if you did, do you feel it's easier for a sergeant to get in trouble, or do you think it would be easier for an officer to get in trouble? So I'm asking because you were both, and I was never a supervisor. So
Well, what I found as a sergeant, and now for me, like, knowledge is power, and knowing our policies and procedures is important, because I was always careful not to violate those. I still find myself getting written up 3 times as a sergeant for things that I didn't actually do wrong, and was able to get removed later. But uh, I think when you promote in this department, you start to get into the politics of the department and you put a target on yourself. And so you tend to be more prone to getting looked at if you resist what the management wants. And when I say that, I feel like, I was literally getting write ups for, like, someone reported they thought they lost the key to me. I investigated it, found they didn't lose the key, got a write up 4 days later for not reporting that to my supervisor. And my supervisor literally told me as he handed me the LOI, yeah, this thing's bullshit, but I have to give it to you.
yeah, it seems like the write ups come out of blue. Like there's like a progressive disciplinary, how you're supposed to get a verbal, supposed to get like the training form, and then if you're still messing up, get the LOI. Sometimes the LOIs, they just come out of the blue, right?
Yeah, they'll jump right to it. In fact, ECR has almost never happened.
Yeah.
That you'll write to the LOI because they always say, well, this isn't meant to be considered a reprimand or disciplinary nature. It's training. If you read them, they're absolutely meant to be disciplinary and derogatory towards you, and what a terrible officer you are, or whatever. And that's why I didn't like writing them. And I always said, if I wrote you up, you earned it. You wrote yourself up.
So do you feel that you had to convey procedure changes, policy changes to the officers to run the units a certain way, knowing that was going to put the officers in harm's way? It's going to make the situation a little bit more volatile for them.
Yeah, of
If you
course.
know what I'm
I
saying?
know exactly what you're saying, and I always tried to filter out the policy as best I could when I explained it. And I always said I was a bullshit filter because the policies, and you've been around, you've seen these policies come through, they're horrible. And I would try to tell the officers, well, this is what we're going to do. But then I always listened to my officers. I always listened to their feedback because I felt like if anybody knows how well this stuff is going to work or not work, it's the officers in this building or on the yard or whatever. And they'll give me that feedback. And then I would in turn try and take that to my superiors and say, here are the problems with this. We need to either modify it or scrap it. Now, these things come down from the governor's office. So obviously that's not going to happen. We always had to find a way to make it work. But I felt like hearing out the staff that had to do it and trying to find a way to actually make it work was important.
Because it seems like when the policies come down, from my experience of working DVI, the new policy change would come down. The sergeant would come to the unit, convey it to his me and my partners, be like, "Oh, hey, that's bullshit," and then the
It
sergeant would be like,
probably
"Yeah,
was.
well, that's what the new policy is. Have a good day," and then we would just do things like we would normally do. It was like, okay, well, thanks for the update.
Yeah, the only problem with that is if something goes sideways and you're outside of that policy, they come gunning for you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But the old school way is like, hey, run your unit, try not to have an incident, keep the sergeant, keep lieutenants, keep the administrators out of your unit. So that's how you know when you have a well ran unit is when the supervisors are not coming to it.
If
You
all I
know,
have to do is come in and sign the books, I'm a happy sergeant.
yeah, exactly. In your opinion, how do you feel about the changes that you've seen the corrections endure in a 20-year span?
Well, it's an interesting question that you ask, and I'll start with my academy was the first academy of the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Prior to that, there was no rehabilitation in the name. Kind of redundant thing in my mind, but it started a process of changing the mission of the department to a rehabilitation focused mission. That's fine, I guess, if you want to have rehabilitation as part of your mission, which it should be, but I can't rehabilitate somebody. Only they can do that. I can offer the programs or the avenue, but you got to take it. But when I came in, officer safety was paramount. That was number one. Everything else was secondary. And I feel like over the last 20 years, that has switched. It's gone from an officer being safe to an inmate being happy in my mind. And it's just not a safe environment to be in. And I really feel for the young officers that got 27 years in front of him in that environment where the administration's pushing you to sit down and play checkers or pickleball with them instead of observe and report and respond. There was an incident somewhere, everybody was proned out on the ground. Then they got to sit. And then people started getting chronos. Well, they could sit at a table. Oh, they can't sit very long. They can stand. How do I know who's going to do what? If I'm running through the yard and some people are sitting, some people are standing, some people are running. It's insane. It made it unsafe. You could. It was very easy to confuse who was involved, who was not, and it just wasn't an environment that was conducive. And the lines have been blurred. We used to have this over familiarity policy. You didn't talk to inmates about personal things. You didn't give things to inmates. You didn't do things with inmates. You kept that line solid. Now they want you to cross that line. And I don't think it's a safe thing to do. People forget who they are. They're not in prison, especially in California, for a petty crime. They're in there for a violent crime against an innocent person. Period.
Okay, so in the past, we've had those over familiarity cases with male inmates and female staff, not just correctional officers, but CNAs, nurses, and whatnot. So those staff members, they've gotten fired because they've gotten close to inmates in a way that is over familiar. So now with, I don't know, the California model is, I really didn't have to deal with it too much. Are they creating an environment for that to fester or to, so what I'm looking for? Are they creating an environment for that to be more prone to happen? I mean, I think so.
I think, well, we'll go back to my opinion.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, any time that you're in a relationship with someone where you're comfortable talking about things in a less than professional manner, and in our line, the profession is corrections, it becomes a personal manner. And you start to open yourself up to the possibility of going too personal and creating that over familiar line.
Okay, so since we're on the subject of the California model,
Mhm.
do you feel, in your opinion, that the California model is going to prevail? Do you think it's going to be a success, or do you feel that it's going to be a complete and utter failure, and they're going to just axe it?
Well, in my opinion, and I think I could probably back this up, it's going to fail. It will be axed eventually. Will it be axed anytime soon? I doubt it. It's the governor's baby, and he's not going to even remotely admit that it's not successful. I mean, look at the train. It's not going anywhere. It's not even remotely not even close to halfway built, and it's 10 times its budget. It's a failure, but he still pushes it. He's going to push this. I don't know who's going to be in charge after, but eventually it will have to go because we don't have the kind of system that can work in. It works in Norway, great. Norway doesn't have prison gangs. It doesn't have Norteños and Sureños, Mexican mafia, etc. Those inmates are not going to comply with that. They will manipulate it and use it to their advantage, which makes things less safe for the rest of us. But they're not going to play games with people outside of their gang. They're certainly not going to want to do anything with us. And any self-respecting correctional officer or staff member isn't going to want to enjoy their company either. That's not a thing we do. And if you're training these people that that's what they're supposed to do, you're training them wrong and you're putting their lives in danger. It's not a safe thing and it's going to fail. Look at the statistics now. Violence in the prisons has gone up dramatically since they started implementing it. That's not going to change.
So yeah, man, I haven't really been around the California model too much because for the last 2 years I was at the vehicle sally port.
Good place to be.
Yeah, at the healthcare facility, and I'll tell you what, man, it's the most busiest sally port I've ever worked at. I can't really say it's the busiest in the state because I haven't worked I haven't worked
Right, right.
everywhere, and I know a lot of prisons say that their sally port is the busiest in the state, but I can attest how busy this one is. It's literally busy non fucking stop. But I'll take that busyness all day long as opposed to being inside trying to be a part of this California model because I just hear that it's a train wreck, and that's me not really knowing too much about it, so I can't really speak on it too much because all I'm speaking on is what I hear and like just people speak on it like yourself, and you say it's going to be a failure, and I think a good like I don't know if this is an indicator or if it's even part of the California model, but I'm hearing about how there are actual men who want to be women are actually in the women prisons with full genitalia. They're not like transitioned. It's only because they want to be a woman. Do you know, is this part of the California model or is that just California being California?
I don't know if it's specifically in the outline for California model. I don't recall that being part of it or not. I'm not sure. I do know it's a terrible idea, and you've already got inmates getting pregnant by the male inmates that are housed at the female facilities. Which, if you're a California taxpayer, welcome to paying for that burden as well, because you're going to. That puts those inmates at risk. Like,
Right.
how many rapes happen in prison when it's all the same gender? What happens when you start mixing it? It's a problem.
Okay. Okay. You did answer my question. You're you're saying that's probably not really a California model type thing. That's more of a
It might
California.
be, but I'm not certain.
So the reason why I bring this up is because it was probably about 5 months ago, maybe even 6. I did a hospital duty over at the hospital. I think it was over at Dameron Hospital, and me and my partner, we were watching a female inmate because Chowchilla is so far away. They have the officers over here do the coverage.
Mhm.
And total kickback shift, uh, shift, kickback shift. Uh, the female inmate she was cool, as far as being cool it can go, as on the
Right.
job. And we were conversating, and I was like, "Hey, is it true?" And before I can finish the question, she said, "Yes." She says, "Yes." She goes, "There are fucking," her words, "there are fucking men at the women's prison." And I'm like, "How did you know I was going to ask that?" She said, "Oh, all the officers were asking me that." And she said she was in like a little dorm, and she said she goes, "There's one of them in the dorm with me who's in a full on relationship with one of the other cellmates." And she says, "Yep, yep," and they be fucking. They fucking at night, and we just have to put the blankets over our head. And I'm like, how many men do you think are in your prison? She says, "Oh, there's probably about 100." And she says, "There's one of them that keeps eyeballing me everywhere I go." And I already had to tell him that, "Hey, I have a man and I ain't going to mess around. I don't do none of that." And she says, and she started getting fearful. She's like, "Yeah." She goes, "I'm nervous."
Justifiably.
She says, "I'm nervous everywhere I go because this guy's looking at me, and he's not looking at me like he wants to be friends."
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take that a step further just on that
Yeah.
note. So, per our policy and state law and federal law, there is no such thing as consensual sex in a prison, right?
Right.
Okay. So, any sex inside of a prison is considered a rape. Well, now you're putting men in women's prisons, be it a relationship or not, consensual or not. We give them condoms. We give you an item you can't legally use. If you're using it in its intended manner, you're having sex and you're not allowed to do that. And if you're using anything outside of its intended manner, it automatically becomes contraband. But again, the taxpayers of the state of California are paying for every single inmate to walk up to a box on the wall whenever they want and grab out as many condoms as they want. And now you weren't inside, probably would know this. Uh, to save their cellie's life, they can just pick up shots of Narcan and give themselves shots in the nose if their cellie starts overdosing.
Yes, I was around for every area of the prison or at the healthcare facility. They had their inventory of Narcan
Yeah.
everywhere. Actually, kind of off subject, but because I worked at Sallyport, even when they parole, you know how they get their gate money?
Uh-huh.
They get condoms, Narcan.
Oh
Yeah, that's in their little package that they get.
my God.
But yeah, back to the men in the women's prison. So you have the transgender inmates that are in a male prison. There was an incident over there to where one got raped on the yard. Cameras everywhere, and these guys still held him down and had sex with him. One guy and I think a couple of his buddies. So if it's happening in a male prison, what do you think's going to happen when you put actual men with their genitalia who are playing the game just because they want to be around women? I mean, who wouldn't want to be
If I was
incarcerated?
locked up, absolutely.
You want real women around you. And then it's just nonsense. It's hard to even fathom that them putting men in a women's prison just because they say they want to be a woman. Because you got to think the women there, they're fulfilling they're doing their
Their
time.
time. Yep.
They're doing their time. Okay, so whatever they did on the streets, they got locked up. And now they're going to prison. They're doing their time. So California comes along and says, "Hey, you know what? I'm just speaking right now, being dumb. You know what? Your time's not hard enough. We're
Yeah.
gonna go ahead and make it harder for you.
Let's get you.
We're
Get
gonna
you
throw some
raped.
alligators into the river. We're gonna throw some men in there, probably who were predators on the street, maybe child molesters, rapists. And you're gonna put them in. You're putting roosters in the hen house, literally.
Literally.
You know,
And what good could possibly come from it? What good can come from this policy? Absolutely nothing.
make it make sense.
It doesn't. It never will.
Make it make sense, man.
It'll never, ever, ever, ever make sense.
No, it won't.
But
It won't.
that's California.
You know, and so speaking on, okay, I didn't know when I was going to bring this up in the podcast, but I think now is a good time because we're bringing up men wanting to be women. Working the vehicle Sally Port over there, I see the medical appointments that are going out,
Right.
and a lot of the medical appointments are for the men wanting to be women, and the term for it is they're transgendering.
Transgender. Yeah.
So I would see these guys go out on their appointments, and it's transgender appointments, and they're getting the lip injections, they're getting the breast implants, they're getting the hormone treatment, they're getting the facial feminization surgery, to where they saw down
Never even
or
heard that term before.
they shave down the jawline to where it looks more feminine, like a woman,
Wow. Didn't even know that was a
and
thing.
countless numbers of hair removal procedures. And then one of the officers came to me and said, we were talking about it, and they said, "Yeah, we were talking to one of the doctors that performs these procedures."
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor told the officers that each inmate that is transgendering is allotted by the Department of Corrections $1.1 million to put on whatever procedure they want to make them a woman.
Why am I paying for that? I mean, I'm pretty easygoing. Like if that's what you want to do to your body, that's your choice. I'm not the kind of person. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. You straight, gay, bi, trans. You like, whatever. That's you. Not my business. Not my concern. Still going to be your partner. I'm still going to be your friend. Whatever. But I don't. I shouldn't be paying for your elective surgeries. The taxpayers of the state definitely should not be paying for that. If you want to do it, that's on you.
Yeah, sorry for not having the camera on me when I was saying all that. It was on you. But yeah, man, it's like, so if somebody wants to be transgender, I don't have a problem with that. Like, hey, you do you, I'm going to do me. So they created they committed a crime, and then they're going to prison to do it. So they didn't start any of this procedure out on the streets. So why are we paying for it just because they're an inmate now? Now, I can see if they were halfway through. It's kind of like if somebody has cancer on the street and then they become an inmate. Well, the state has to still get them their cancer
Their
treatments,
cancer.
right?
That's right.
So these people, all it was a thought in their head. This is who I am. So they could be rapists, child molesters. Uh, you know, I don't know why I just go straight to that. But they want to transition. We pay for it. It's like they're getting. I wouldn't call it a reward, but
Well, they're getting something.
you
They're getting a heck of a benefit. That's for dang sure.
yeah.
Because those are not cheap surgeries, and our obligation as the state, as the department, or no longer you and mine, we're not part of that anymore, but is to their well-being. Okay, your medical care. If you're sick, we'll get you the care to fix that. If you break your arm, we'll get you a cast and an X-ray or whatever. You get stabbed, we'll sew that up. You want a pair of boobs? That's nice. Get them on your own later. We shouldn't be paying for that. I'm sorry.
Right.
You know.
No, it's just like there's a lot of stuff I don't get. Like, okay, so you have these inmates that are actually going through all these procedures to get trans to change their gender, all the way to removing the male genitals and creating what looks like female. Okay, and then I hear once that's done, that then they can go to a women's prison. So what doesn't make sense is putting actual men who have no desire to even get all these procedures done. Those are the ones they're putting in the women's prison.
which makes zero
Yeah,
sense.
I mean, I hate to say that I feel sorry for any inmates, but I mean, you're putting more salt on that wound of them being
Yeah,
incarcerated.
it's,
You know,
you know,
you know what I'm trying to say, right?
part of our mission statement is that our job was to keep them safe too. You know, if you heard something, and I'll just go straight to men, just a men's prison, and you were given information that somebody was going to get stabbed, you would be obligated to remove that person, at least let them know, have a confidential conversation, document it, and then if he decided to go back to the yard on its own, sign off on a document that said that we
Yeah.
told you, we heard this.
A whole lot of those female inmates are going to get stabbed, but it's not with a
Not with a
shank,
shank,
with
yes.
with a meat shank. You know.
Yeah, but our obligation was to protect them. Now,
Yeah.
anyone with common sense knows you put a man who is never, or not for any long period of time, getting outside of the walls of a prison into a place where they're all women. Sooner or later, something's going to happen. It's going to. You're putting those women at risk. And who's at fault for that? I mean, ultimately, the person doing the task or the act is, but who put them there? Who made the decision to say, yeah, let's pull this fully male person who claims to be a female in with female? You're going to create problems.
Yeah. No. Exactly. Now, I don't usually get into the conversation of like transgender alternate lifestyles like that, and like I said, I do stand by what I said is like, hey, you do you do me. I don't care what you do, just do it over there, right?
Yeah, and ultimately, I don't care either. It's your life and your
Yeah.
body, and you live it the way you want. That's fine. But I wouldn't put you at risk intentionally either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what the state's doing.
Now, and us being correctional officers over the years, I know there's a whole lot of, hey, we don't want to know your opinion. This is how it's going to be. We're paying you to make sure this gets done, right? Or make sure their needs are met. Like we're not really there to have an opinion. We're there to actually help achieve, not achieve, but we're to do what the administrators tell us to do. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, we have a job, and
So
we have
like
a
I
job
wouldn't be I
description,
wouldn't be
and
talking about this if I was still working, because I'd get in trouble because sounds like I'm naysaying it,
yeah,
which
and
which I am.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's a bad policy, and and like when this policy comes out, and I've got to tell my officers when I was a sergeant, what I said before, like I'm going to try and present this in a way that makes sense
Yeah.
as best I can, and then I'm going to take this back to my administrators. And again, I never changed anything, but I tried. But yeah, the you will follow the marching orders thing was definitely a part of the thing. I can't tell you how many times I was told, just make it happen, Sarge. Just make it happen. Uh, I can't, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, the point I was trying to make was like being a correctional officer, all we do all day long is like we basically jump through hoops. If we want that paycheck, if if we want this career to continue, if we want to continue to pay our bills, what they hand down the line, we have to abide by it,
Well,
right?
and you bring up a really good point, because when I said, remember when I started out in the county jail, I'm like, I found a passion. I found something I love doing.
Yeah.
So I went into corrections, and I was the first half of my career, I really enjoyed it. But somewhere in there, it just became it's just a paycheck. Like I'm just doing a job for a check. And that's sad because you took a job that I was passionate about, that I love doing, and made it to where I just like, well, I can't wait to freaking retire because I need the paycheck, but I don't like it anymore. It was not fun. It was not enjoyable. The altruistic goals that I had went away. And I was just another body doing a task.
And then now the prison systems are getting cameras around every corner, high dollar, high def, 4K, 8K.
Yeah.
So now you have all these like weird policies. We have to act a certain way, watch what we say, and then there's cameras everywhere. So it's like now the mission of securing your pension for me was like, okay, let's really secure it at the earliest possible because I don't want anything happening to where it'll put it in jeopardy. And face it, we're in a field to where you go walk around the corner and then a situation's already situating. And because the
Yeah.
camera sees that you looking at it and you don't really know what you're looking at it, they're going to say, well, how come you didn't do nothing? The camera says that you looked at it.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my partners, he got fired. He got his job back because he responded to something was happening in one of the units. He was tunnel visioned on something, totally didn't see what was happening. But they said, well, you failed to act because you're looking right at the situation. He's like, I wasn't looking at what was going on. I was looking at something else. They fired him because they said, nope, the camera's not lying. The camera says that you're looking at it.
Can the camera see my eyeballs?
Yeah.
I don't
So
know.
he ended up getting his job
Yeah.
back and
Which,
his money back.
yeah.
But
Like, remember what I said about it's us against you at the beginning?
yeah, yeah,
That's what they do. And they're
yeah.
looking. And I'm, I have a split opinion on the cameras because more times than not, if there's a camera, an allegation from an inmate goes out the window because you can see and hear what they said. And
Right, right.
that's great because it defends the officers far more than it condemns them. The problem is if you're a cop on the streets and you have a body camera and you're riding around with your partner in your cruiser, you turn them off. You can have a casual conversation about any subject you would like to break the stress and the monotony of whatever the hell you just dealt with. And no one's the wiser. It's just a conversation between two people. When you're in some sort of an incident, you turn it back on and you're there. You can't turn those cameras off inside the prison. You've taken the ability for guys like me and you to have a conversation like this away without it being scrutinized.
Well, I definitely see what you're saying there. It's definitely a good thing to have cameras because it'll defend us against
Right.
allegations, from the bad guys. But there, here's the trying part of it is I don't know one correctional officer who does his job to a T by policy.
You can't.
Exactly. So with the cameras on you 24/7, well, while you're at work, if they really want, if they have it out for you, they're going to find something to
Yeah.
burn you on.
And
Plain and simple.
that's a problem because like let's just take one simple thing. As a tier cop, you're supposed to search 3 cells a day, right? And the criteria for searching a cell is laid out for you of what you're supposed to do and how what you're supposed to look into and blah blah blah. They teach us all this. You're going to search a cell, right? It's going to take you 45 minutes at a minimum. You're supposed to do 3 of those, right? Each officer, 3 cells. Okay. If I do that, I'm not going to let out the medical releases. The guys aren't going to get to chow. People aren't going to make it to work. Med pass is going to get delayed because an hour and a half to 2 hours, 2.5 hours of my day is sucked into these cell searches. So what do? You walk in, you look around, you lift up the mattress, you dump out a couple of cups, you move on because you don't have time to actually do it. I mean, I always know like I searched a cell for real. The guy prompted it. And we're not supposed to do that. you know, that's retaliation.
Well, yeah. Well, I remember at DVI, if someone in a cell, if they were fucking up,
Or you search his homies.
we'd search that cell and then both cells on each side of it
Yep.
because you brought attention.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of fucked up for the guys who didn't do nothing.
No, but it made a point like,
Well, and it helps us because that's when they start checking each other.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and the truth is, like, when I was a cop and I was working a building, I had very little problems with inmates acting up in the building because I had set a line that I'm gonna, if you create a problem, I'm gonna create a problem, plain and simple. I've had inmates get out of line, and I've had other inmates go, "Okay, Grant, we got this, bro." And we take him and throw him back in the cell and shut the door. I had nothing to do with it. And then he would apologize to me later. Now, I'm 99% certain that he got beat up within the confines of his clothing so that we couldn't see the bruises, but he apologized to me. You know, I couldn't see the evidence. I know politics. I know what happened.
Do you how would you feel if you ran into okay, let me rephrase this. I was going to say how would you feel if you ran into inmates that know you from the inside, but let me rephrase that a little bit. What if you ran into an inmate who you had the worst experience with in the prison? What if you ran into that guy on the streets? Would you feel comfortable enough because you handled the situation, your worst situation with him professionally? Like, so would you be okay? And do you think you'd have like a good conversation?
I well, I've actually had that.
Yeah.
No, I've had multiple encounters with inmates that recognize me. Half the time I don't know recognize them,
But I'm talking about
but
someone who you had a bad interaction with.
so so I'll say this: the way that I conducted myself with the inmates, I'm very comfortable with. Every interaction, I was never out of pocket. I always stayed within policy, and I was always fair. Now, fair might be me doing what I got to do, but I'm fair about it. You brought it on yourself. We had an inmate at DVI, and he was in K wing or L1 almost all the time, always in ADSEC, and we would have to extract this guy all the time because he would board up, and just an obnoxious little guy, and he got let out under AB 109. And I was working the Magoo, sergeant out there, and I went down to the cafeteria to get something to eat, and this guy sees me, and I've extracted this guy, I've pepper sprayed this guy, I've had like just flat out nose to nose arguments with this guy, and he sees me, and he's like, "Hey, Sergeant Grant." And I looked, and my first thought was, "The hell are you doing out here?" And again, as a sergeant, you're not in a particular building or anything where you have the same inmates around you all the time and you know them. You know very few by their face. And the only way that I would recognize an inmate is you either were working for me, you were my porter or something, or you were such a pain in the ass
Exactly.
that I had to deal with you all the time. This was that guy. And I was like, oh, can I say his name? Should I? I won't say his name. Um, and I see him and I'm like, he looks at me and goes, "What are you doing out here?" And I said, "I'm working." I'm like in full uniform, right? I'm like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, they let me out, man." And I was like, "Oh." He goes, "Come here. I want you to meet my dad." He introduced me to his father. So I'm comfortable with how I treat. Like
Yeah.
he knew I wasn't treating him
Where was
mean.
this at?
At the San Joaquin.
Oh, okay. The hospital. Gotcha.
Yeah, So yeah, no, I've never had a problem. I'm not worried about that because I know I was fair.
Yeah, you know what? I'm pretty much with you as well. So I don't mind making this like a prison genre podcast because I know some former inmates may see it. And throughout my whole career, man, I've been pretty much professional, uh, fair, pretty much the same person I am to my friends out on the street. I am to these guys. Well, in that certain way, how I interact, how I talk to you is like I just treat them like human beings. I mean, if you're clearly a elevated piece of shit, then obviously, you're going to get a different interaction with me. But
Yeah, but
for
if you're an elevated piece of shit that's programming today, and you're doing what you should be doing, you're not a problem, then today you're just another inmate.
yeah,
Now
yeah,
tomorrow's another day.
and I don't mind saying an inmate calling him a piece of shit because inmates with some common sense, they know they're in there with a bunch of piece of shits.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a quick example is one time I was at the bar shooting some pool, and I was there to shoot pool, but it happened to be karaoke night. So at this place in Lodi, a lot of people there. I was at the bar, getting waiting for the bartender to get my attention. Guy next to me, clean cut, uh, collar shirt, glasses, hat, looked like a nice guy. He was like, "Hey, what's going on, Buren?" What?
That'll get you.
You know my last name? He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I was at the dorm over there." He goes, "You worked over there a couple times. You were always pretty cool, man. Can I buy you a beer?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure, man."
Free beer.
I got me a beer, and I shook his hand, and I don't remember him, but apparently he remembered me. So that's pretty much,
Yeah.
There's been a couple other interactions on the street. Same thing.
Yeah. And
They didn't buy me a beer, but
I've had, yeah.
you know,
Well, that's a nice bonus.
yeah.
But I've had a few interactions, and every time they're like, they really just want to tell me how good they're doing now, and they don't want to have a problem. They recognize me.
Mhm.
Uh, I had a guy actually thank me for being professional one time. Actually, in my short stint at county, uh, there was one guy that was on a suicide watch, and I was just happened to be assigned there, and I had to give him his shower and his razor and blah blah blah. And of
Mhm.
course, the protocols are the same. They don't get anything that could possibly harm them or whatever. And I just did the job, and I did it professionally as best I could for a brand new guy. And they were releasing him on probation, or not probation, but like he bailed out or whatever. And I happened to be going through, and he's like, "Oh, hey," and his mom's like, "That's the only guy here that was worth a damn." He goes, "I just want to thank you," and he shook my hand. I was like, "I'm just doing my job, you know." But that's why would I not be fair? Why would I not be polite or whatever if I can? You know,
Yeah, exactly. I stayed the same, fair, firm, consistent, and I've always had conversations with these guys. Like, hey, we're both men. You ended up on that side of the fence. I ended up on this side of the fence. If I'm going to respect what you have to do, you have to respect my reaction to what you have to do.
right?
It is what it is. I mean, it's just face
Well, and
value.
any true convict knows that.
Yeah, face value. You know who has seems to be having a good relationship with like former inmates is Hector Bravo, and I'm sure he needs no introduction. I'm sure you know who he is.
Well, I do. I follow his podcast. I love it. And it's obvious if you look in the comments, there are former inmates that speak freely to him on his podcast. And I think that's part of just being a professional. I think he was a professional, and he did the job the way it was supposed to be done. And quite honestly, he's doing the Lord's work now, as far as I'm concerned, with his podcast and exposing some of the stuff that clearly needs to be exposed.
Yeah, and you know what? And just for the record, I wouldn't bring up any man's name up on my podcast unless I have nothing but good things to say about it. Because I'm a fan. I respect his push on YouTube. Like he's really, by the way, he's over 50,000 subscribers now,
That's not bad.
and he is exposing and saying everything that every working correctional officer or correctional employee wants to say. But you know
But
what? He's free to do it now.
he's free to do it, and he calls out everything. Like I took a shot personal when he said, "You guys need to be in better shape," because I looked at myself. I'm like, he's talking about me. So
He's talking about a lot of people. We all
yeah,
need to be in
true.
shape.
But no, he's a man of, in my mind, great character. He's done he did everything the department wanted. He did his career path to go straight down the line. Special assignments. He promoted up the chain quickly. He was a great trainer. It seems like he's a great communicator, and he did the things that I think most of us wish we could do, which is step away. That was something that I made the choice to not promote any higher because I could see enough to go, I don't want to be a part of that. He promoted up, saw enough to said, I'm leaving. And that takes courage to step away and leave, and then step out and speak the truth of the things that you saw.
And you know what? The Hector Bravo that I see on his YouTube channel, it seems like they messed with the wrong one.
I think they did,
I
because
mean,
he knows his stuff, man.
I mean, including myself, I don't know anybody who can come out and go that hard on YouTube about exposing this stuff as he's doing. So my hats off to you, Hector Bravo. I mean, you're really doing it. Uh,
And I will get in shape, bro.
Wait, no, you can talk to him now.
I'll get in better shape, even though I'm retired. I know I'm out of shape.
Get
I'll
your ass
work on
down.
that. Yeah.
Give me a burpee for Hector Bravo. Come on, get down there and do it.
Why not get
Yeah.
back up?
No, the reason why I brought him up, the point I was trying to make was, it seems like, as far as working in the prison, he's a real one,
Yeah,
and he's probably done some shit in there. I don't know. Never worked with him. Don't know the guy. I just know him from YouTube, like a lot of us, and I'm sure he was a heavy hitter. And the inmates that interact with him, who are fans of his show and that he interviews, I think they know business is business. That's all part of the job. He
absolutely.
was every bit of old school prison guard.
Which
You know,
is desperately needed again.
yeah. You say that again.
Yeah, I mean the kids coming up now. I know when I was a new cop, I had great veteran cops in my building that taught me the ropes and taught me how to do the job right. And I don't think these kids are getting that now. The veteran cops are retiring out, going into towers or some other position where they're not out there. And these youngsters are hung out to dry with the academy training. And I can't imagine what they're getting trained now because mine wasn't that great.
Well, I don't exactly know what they're being trained either nowadays, but it's incorporated with this California model thing.
Oh yeah,
That I just,
I know they're teaching them the current policy, and I'm not a fan of the current policy.
yeah, and I still don't fully understand it, so I can't speak on it that much. Like I said, I'm not really around it. I didn't plan to be around it too long.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad to, and as we've discussed previously, like not necessarily my choice to retire when I did, but now that I'm out and looking at what's happening, I'm really happy of the way things turned out.
Yep, yeah. No, if so, I was hired in 2001 at DVI. Uh, Came up around some old school,
Some OGs.
uh, like not playing around type of OGs, and uh, I can't say it really turned me into them, but it definitely helped mold
But
me.
it definitely taught you
It
some
definitely helped
things.
mold me and teach me some things. And it's let's just say when it's time to go, it's time to go. And someone told me a long time ago when I first started, like, secure your pension, retire as soon as you can. Well, I'm 51 and I just retired, and I'm like, you know, I'm able to do it.
Yeah,
Let's not do it. Let's not stick
and I'm
around.
I'm also 51, and I feel like you know what? I'm not that old. I can do something else. I can enjoy my life for a while. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's a good thing.
Yeah, I know, and I never really wanted to be in my 50s, 60s working in a prison. So I want to go work somewhere else, but nah, prison. I'm done with it. It's time to change the channel. Yeah, time to change the channel, brother.
Yeah, time for something different.
What what really preempted you to actually make the move of to pull the trigger on retiring? Because I know a lot of it is we want to secure the bag as soon as we can, but sometimes events and things happen in our life to where it kind of really nudges us to that direction.
Yeah, well, for me, my bag was not secure in my mind yet. I was planning on at least 5 more years, maybe a couple more after that. But as fate would have it, excuse me, I I sustained an injury to my shoulder, which required surgery. The surgery didn't work, and they said it was inoperable. They did another surgery where they reconstructed my rotator cuff with some grafting and things like that. But the doctor said that I can't really lift a lot, and he said that I can't be getting into grappling matches with inmates, which is one of our job duties.
Yeah,
I proactively put myself as the first watch OP sergeant through the bid process while I was out, thinking, that's the least likely spot for that. But the department said, no, you can't do that. You have to be able to do all the duties no matter what your post is.
exactly.
And they said, you are permanent stationary, is what they said, and you have to retire. And I was like, oh, well, I guess that's what I'm going to do. But within the process of that, and there's a story to it if you would like to hear my whole story.
By all means, I would.
The The second surgery was a very substantial surgery. It took several hours to reconstruct my shoulder, and they immobilize you for that. And one of the things that happens is your body can develop blood clots if you don't move at all for several hours. I 2 days after the surgery woke up with chest pain. It scared the crap out of me. Went to the hospital, and about halfway through the process, I started to think I was one of the inmates because every test came back negative on my heart. EKG, the blood
So
tests. I
you're
don't know.
thinking they were going to think you're just faking it?
Yeah, ultrasound. I'm like,
See
what's
some pretty,
going
see
on?
some pretty nurses. That's the only reason why you're
Right?
doing it.
Yeah, like just wanted to go see the nurses or something. I was like, God, am I out of my mind? Did I just adopt the philosophy of an inmate to go to the hospital or something? Like, no, my chest was hurting. I know it was, and they did. But they decided to do a stress test, and in that it showed shadowing. They said. So I said, well, we want to do an angiogram. So I put a camera in my leg and looked at my heart, which I was awake for, and seeing the inside of your heartbeat on the screen's weird. Just going to say that. But my heart was fine. It was nothing. And the cardiologist, despite all my energy drinks and everything else, said my heart's in great shape. So all you naysayers, they're fine. My heart's in great shape. And they sent me home. A week later, I coughed and stopped breathing.
Let me interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
Do you say all these naysayers to them, your heart's fine?
Yeah, about the rock stars.
Okay, because everybody says, "Oh, you drink too many. You drink too many." Okay,
Yeah, and my heart's fine. In fact, they said
I
my
know.
heart's really good.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. So yes, they don't hurt me. Well, so far. But I go home after that. They send me home. Said it must have been referred pain or something. And a week goes by, and I'm getting ready to go to bed, and I coughed. And after I coughed, I went, and that was it. That was all I could breathe in. I started to panic. My wife called 911. Well, my daughter called 911. Um, they they rushed me out, and my vitals were insane. And it was like my blood pressure was 210 over 120. My heart rate was like 160 beats a minute. My O2 was at 83, and I still remember that, which is weird. Basically, I was dying right then. They threw me in an ambulance, took me code 3, lights and sirens of the hospital. Went in and decided to check my lungs since I was breathing a little better by the time I got there. Something must have jarred loose or something, but they did a CT on my lungs, and the doctor said that every nodule of my lungs was blocked by a blood clot. And I went back to my primary, and she looked at me and she looked at the test and said, and this is what I take from this, is where I'm at. You have something on this earth you're supposed to do because you should not be here. That was my doctor. I'm taking that to heart. Like, I got a mission. I got to find my mission and do it because I shouldn't be here. And I feel like I've got a new lease on life, and I'm going to take it. So, yeah, that's that. When they told me I had to retire, I went, okay, I'll retire. I'm fine with that. I'll do something different. And I'm actually very happy that I'm retired.
Well, you got the age, and you have the years in to do it. I mean, you probably are feeling like how I always felt. Like, I don't want corrections to define me as a person. I want corrections to be just a chapter in my life. And now that this chapter's done, I want to move on to bigger and better things. Maybe something that I feel that I was meant to do. I was never meant to be
In the
a
prison.
correctional.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I was meant. It had its purpose in my
For a
life.
season,
It was probably
absolutely.
meant for a purpose. I raised children. Like, I'm leaving with an appreciation of it, even though I know there's all the corruption and there's a lot of bullshit. I do appreciate the nice paycheck for a high school dropout to make over these years and
Absolutely.
raise a couple fine
Well,
young men.
and and you and I are both the same age, and we're stepping out at a good time where we really have a lot of options and opportunities.
Mhm.
The career will always affect us. Where I sit at a restaurant now, I still walk 3 to 4 steps behind my wife wherever we go. Just the institutionalizing that happens to you. I'm suspicious of everybody.
Well,
you know,
I'm not really suspicious. I know I'm judgmental over guys that are tatted out, not just guys with tattoos, because we know the difference between
tattoos and tatted out.
prison
Yes.
tattoos and then tattoos on the street. Like, prison tattoos, I mean, a lot of it's good work, but you can just tell what was done on the inside. I'm not saying they're a bad guy. I'm not saying anything's going to happen or they're out to hurt me or rob me. I'm just saying I'm judgmental
You're
because
gonna
I know he was.
you're gonna pay a little extra attention when you see something that
Yeah,
warrants that extra attention.
yeah.
You know,
Just like whenever I go to a bar or I go to a house party or something, people are judgmental against me because I'm a correctional officer. They peg me and said, "Oh, you're probably a cop." I'm like, What makes you think I'm a cop?" Well, clean cut, white guy,
Mhm.
bald, no tattoos.
Yeah, yeah, it is what it is.
I don't use slang, too much. It is what it
I,
is.
I use slang. I know I use it inside the walls a lot to communicate with the inmates, but it's not a thing I do out of here because
Yeah.
normal communication doesn't require it.
But yeah, that's what I wanted to say, man. It's just a chapter of our lives. Like we're at a point. I mean, 50's old to somebody who's in their 20s,
No, it
but
sounds old, but no,
to
it's not.
someone like I'm 50, I'm like I don't feel old. I still feel like I'm in my 20s. You know,
Most of the time.
Hey, bring me a 30 something. Still down. Still down to get busy.
What's that? What's that song? Not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, uh, but yeah, I'm glad you came out okay, man.
Yeah, no, and like I said, like I'm happy to be here. I'm going to try and have a more positive impact on things than I did before, just because I feel like part of that job is very negative and it makes you very negative. So I don't have to be in that environment, and God's got something for me, so I want to do it.
You know what? This might be late in the conversation to bring up, but what you just said right now, it's a negative environment. Do you feel that corrections and how it changes us? Do you in your own personal marriage? Do you feel that it caused waves, or did it contribute to any hard times?
Oh, it absolutely did. I mean, just
Yeah,
the
you know what I'm trying to say.
yeah. I mean, I know I became well. One, I didn't drink at all before I started this job.
Mhm.
Not a drop, nothing. And then I started drinking a lot, and like, and now I'm laying off of it now because I'm not, I feel like I need to, but I drank every day, just about, and I saw myself getting very short tempered at home, and so those are things that I had to address in that because, aside from the time commitment, the away from your family, how many double shifts do you think you did in your career?
My goodness, I was just thinking about this the other day, man. Well, you got to think we've been doing it for over 20 years, 24 years for myself, and we were doing doubles when we first started because bottom of the
You get
seniority
held
list,
over.
we're held over.
Yeah.
Uh, and you know how it goes in waves. Sometimes overtime was so bad, we're getting held over every other day, if not back to backs.
Well, when I started at Salinas Valley, now keep in mind, my start was delayed by a year because they froze hiring.
Yeah,
So when I got there, everything was shorthanded anyway, and that place was always short staffed. And they put me on first watch. So what do you think I did every day? I did second watch too. Like that was
yeah,
just what it was, And then, part of it, you get used to that money coming in. So when you're not getting held over, you start to volunteer.
yeah,
It's a bad cycle. For
yeah,
all you youngsters out there, live off your check. Don't live off your overtime. Save that
yeah,
up, spend it on something, but don't make it part of your
yeah,
monthly.
yeah. No, the overtime is great, but to answer your questions about how many double shifts did I work, and I'm not even making this up, literally too many to count.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't know how many years it's taken off my life being at work. I mean, yeah, it's great money. That paycheck's good, but try to live without it, man.
Yeah,
Because
because it's
chase your life, don't chase the money,
yeah, because
and that's where I'm at.
I missed, and that was the thing that bothers me the most. With families, I missed things that I didn't want to miss, and corrections did give us an option. You could do shift swaps or whatever, and if you weren't abusing the crap out of sick leave, they didn't really sweat you too much.
Okay,
But
okay, we're kind of getting a little off track.
yeah,
The question I asked,
oh, okay.
or do we want to start away from that?
I don't know. We're just talking. I mean,
No, the about the job effects on your
oh
marriage. Did it
yeah,
make any times more
yeah.
trying?
Well, it absolutely, yeah, like I said, it absolutely did, and I think that part of that was just you miss things. You're not there for your family when you'd like to be, which is kind of where I was going with that. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it made a lot of stress. And I will say that my wife's a saint. We've been married 30 years and we're still together. And I know very few people in our line of work that can say that they've been able to stay together with their wives or their husbands or whatever.
Yeah. I fell into that statistic for sure.
Because it's a very small percentage. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very fortunate that I had someone enough understanding enough to stick it out with me.
Yep. Hey, very well said. I wish I could stay the same, but I'm happily single now.
Well, and you go forward from where you are in life today.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's meant for a reason. So I don't want to have you here all day, but we'll go ahead and close out the podcast. But before we conclude, I want to ask you uh, if you had children right now in today's world of CDC and how it is, if you had, say, a son or a daughter who's thinking about coming into corrections, she's 21, he's 21 right now, would you push them to do it or would you recommend them do it?
I would do the exact opposite of that. I would steer them completely away from the department. This department is not the one that I joined in 20 years ago. It's not the one came into 24 years ago. It is a complete 180. The mission's not the same. The direction's not the same. And it's not a safe or healthy place to be. I would not, if you're a youngster out there, I wouldn't, if I were their age now, knowing what I know, I would never do this job.
It seems like it's an environment now for new employees to become victimized and maybe even hurt, manipulated, victimized, and hurt.
100%. And while, like I said, I was willing to stick it out as long as I needed to, I was very vested in getting my retirement set and getting out. Even if I were a fairly new officer, I'd quit. I'd find something else. It's not worth it. They don't pay you enough to deal with what you're dealing with, and it's going to cost people their lives.
But if you like a career of adventure, I mean, this is going to definitely be an adventure. So if you do it, more power to you. We're not trying to talk you out of it. We're just not the ones that are going to talk you into doing it.
Yeah,
Right.
and yeah, I mean, you'll see some stuff. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, in my 20 years, I've seen some crazy stuff, but you know, that's not why I did the career. And for me, that's not enough motivation to subject myself to that environment again.
You know what? Let me put you on the spot real quick, but it's nothing crazy. It's a positive on the spot.
Mhm.
I want you to think back over your career and think about who really impacted you to where you have a lot of respect for them, and like whenever you think of their name, that you just like you want to smile, you just have that appreciation in your heart. Whether it's one person or a couple people, who throughout your career like really helped you out, made an impression on you.
Well, there's a lot of people. Seward and Dotson at Salinas Valley, my two partners in Alpha 3, were great for a young cop. They really taught me the ropes well. DVI was my home, and so many great partners there, including you, who brought me that Taco Bell that night. um, that's how I met Keith, by the way. He brought me food one night when I was working at the hospital. Um, gosh, there's a lot. Gilbert Valenzuela comes to mind as someone that I just really respected and was really, really there for me no matter what. Pat Linehan, met him at the academy, took my first blue card, jerk. Um, but he let me earn it back, and he was always there throughout my career to help me and teach me and learn things. He was at DVI when I got there, and so that was pretty cool. But yeah, but the line staff at DVI as a whole, that family unit was amazing to me, and I won't trade that for the world. I loved every single one of you guys.
Yeah, man. Even when I first started, I can piggyback off that answer. It's like even when the OGs were being hard on you, it seems like now, look in retrospect, it was for a reason.
Yeah, they were.
It's kind of like that's how they raised you up, man.
Yeah, they were teaching you something in that.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that was great to have, you know, that camaraderie, that, you know, I know something happened, you guys had my back. You know, I knew that. Didn't have to question it. And that's the one takeaway that I've got is that there are great people doing this job.
Yeah. And, I'm very honored to have completed 20 years at DVI. And you know what? The transition over to the California healthcare facility, the rumor had it, everybody had it out for us. Everybody automatically hated us because we had a lot of time over at DVI.
Right,
A
right.
lot of seniority was coming to take their jobs. I mean, it was kind of weird, probably for the first couple of weeks. But once everybody really started meeting everybody and realized, okay, hey, these guys got a lot of time in, but most of them are pretty damn cool. And then just how we expect,
Yeah.
everything just falls into place, and then next, we're all friends. A
And
lot of cool people over there, and because what's cool about CHF was it's very diverse as uh, in regards of all the different institutions that provided officers.
yeah.
There's a lot of different because you got to think when it opened, late in the game, it's the last prison open. They got officers from everywhere. So you get high desert people, you got Pelican Bay, you have Folsom, Sac,
Yeah,
a little bit of everybody.
anybody that was lived in that valley that wanted to get close to home would go there.
Yeah, yeah,
And you know as well as I do, you don't always get to pick where they send you
yeah,
when you're working. And I don't want to disparage Folsom because Folsom, the staff there welcomed me with open arms and they were great as well. I just had so much more time with DVI that it's like that's my family. Don't see you guys enough, and I'd like to see more, but that was home and that's my family.
yeah. Very nice. Well, you know what, man? Hey, I don't want to make a 3 hour long podcast. I think a little bit over an hour is like enough people who want to look at us or listen to us.
Yeah,
So,
I do get
man,
long winded. I know.
but hey, man, let's go ahead and kill it right there.
All right.
And man, thanks
Thank
for coming
you.
over, brother.
Oh, it was my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Hey, hey, everybody. If you didn't mind being a fly on the wall, and if you want to hear more podcasts from the Keither.B YouTube channel, do me a favor, man. It just helps me out. The price of admission, all it is a subscribe and a like the button. Maybe even share it on your Facebook. So, peace out, everybody. Have a good day.
Peace.